Right, the week started with solemn remembrances nationwide on 9/11, and it's ending with President Bush at odds with members of his own party over the war on terror. It's all fodder for the host of MSNBC's Countdown, Keith Olbermann, who's also out with a brand new book called The Worst Person in the World. Yeah. It hits the stores today. Hey, Keith, good to see you. Welcome back. Man. The president has asked Congress for more leeway so that interrogators can use different techniques, more severe techniques, to get information out of terror suspects. He says it's crucial. You get information, you can stop plots, you can save lives. He goes to Congress, and the Senate Republicans say no. Colin Powell says he doesn't think it's a good idea. Do you think it's strange that he picked this fight so close to the midterm elections? Yeah,
we were wondering when this started, when he said last week that he needed Congress to approve this in that series of pre-9/11 speeches. We were wondering, who was he going after? Was he asking the Democrats to step up against the election deadline, or was he asking the Republicans? Turned out it was the Republicans, but who knew they would squeeze back as hard as they did? And the Powell letter is like a watershed moment. This is now... the guy who carried the water to the UN about Iraq and to much of the United States about going to war in Iraq said no to the Bush administration. They said he was confused.
The letter goes to Senator John McCain from Colin Powell, and part of it says the world's beginning to doubt the moral basis of our fight against terrorism. Furthermore, this idea would put our own troops at risk. So let me ask you what you think the man on the street would say. You got a man on the street who says, wait a second, maybe they're crossing the line with some terror suspects, but maybe it's saving us from another 9/11 or worse. Do you think that man on the street's going to say, okay, err on the side of saving us, not them?
Probably, but I think the question becomes a little more complex now because of the personalities involved. It's one thing if it's a bunch of Democrats criticizing the White House or a bunch of members of the media criticizing the White House. This is Colin Powell. This is the Mr. Clean of the first administration, the guy who carried much of the moderate part of the Republican Party. And
but they didn't always listen to him when he was part of the administration.
True enough, but he was the man chosen to sell the Iraq war.
In the Washington Post editorial today, they call it a defining moment for America. Okay, what do you think's at stake here?
John McCain put it correctly. The key element is whatever we decide to do about the Geneva Conventions, someone else can say, hey, you know what, we're going to rewrite the Geneva Conventions too, and we just happen to have 20, 30, 40 American troops that we've captured. We're going to treat them according to the way we have rewritten the Geneva Convention. That is as much an element as anything that might be gained from interrogating these guys in that way.
On Monday, we all observed the 5th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, and you at the end of your show railed against the president and the administration for using 9/11 as a wedge in this country, a political dividing factor. The response was overwhelming.
Indeed.
Both ways. Some people said, way to go, Keith. Other people said, how dare you make this statement on 9/11 from ground zero? You could have done another time. Were you surprised by the response?
To the first part, a little bit. The positive response. I mean, I think...
You didn't expect it?
I didn't expect it in the degree that it's happened. I mean, I thought that there was a part of the persona of the nation not really being articulated in mainstream media, which we did kind of hit, but I did not anticipate the volume of it. As to the other part, I noticed that the major criticism was not the content of what I was saying, but the date.
And the location.
Right, and the location. But, it's a personal thing for me as it is for many people, and also, I might add, that I was on the air 2 minutes before the president was politicizing 9/11 in his own way. I don't see that there's much difference.
Maybe you took your lead.
Probably not.
Worst person in the world. Where did this idea come from?
Oh, from an article about a prominent morning news program, I think, called Today. So about a year ago, there was an article in a major New York newspaper that just threw some opinions out at facts, and I thought, this is not enough to make the news. This story is not enough to make the news, but it should be in the newscast. We should put together like a list of some sort, and this woman was going to be the first nominee, and it turned out there was somebody even worse that day. So every day we do three horrible people.
Some serious, some lighthearted.
Yeah, they're not really the worst.
Now you've put together a whole list of them, and 202 strong contenders. We're on Friday right now, so who's the worst person in the world this week?
So far, I wanted to make sure I got his name right. I just brought the information. You saw the story about the punters in the
the stabbing the first-string punter?
That's it, right. I mean, that guy, Mitch Kozad, who stabs the guy who's beating him out for the punting job at the University of Northern Colorado in the parking lot, wearing a hood, so he could disguise himself so nobody would know it was him. Not only does he do something as bad as that, but the suspicion, the belief on his part that they wouldn't think he was a suspect when he's the one who's gaining from the guy's injury, that makes him a classic worst person in the world.
He gets a T-shirt, coffee mug, something like that?
No, probably a jail sentence, actually.
Probably. Keith Olbermann, thanks very much. You can read an excerpt of Keith's book on our website, today.msnbc.com. And tonight on Countdown, Keith's 9/11 special commentary will re-air in its entirety.